So today's video, we're going to focus on the Rif, Rabbi Yitzchak ben Yaakov HaKohen Alfasi. He was born in the year 1013 in a village near the city of Fez in Morocco. He um, he was then known for the rest of his life as Alfasi, as the one of Fez, or the Ilfus of Fez. So very interesting that a rabbi would be known by his city of origin. Or the acronym of that name ends up becoming Rabbi Yitzchak Alfasi, or the Rif. He studied at his two main teachers was Rabbeinu Hananel, as well as Rabbeinu Nissim, two of the early Rishonim. This is the period following the closure of the yeshivot in Babylonia, and now most Torah scholars are living in Spain, Morocco, Turkey, maybe a little bit in Israel, and eventually coming into Germany and France. So the Rif, he lived in Fez until about the age of 75. At the age of 75, this was the time when the Muslim Moors of the north of North Africa, where he was living, was trying to conquer Spain, of the Christians of Spain. A lot of bloodshed during that time between these two groups. Seems that he was denounced by a father and a son of being some sort of traitor, and he flees for his life, and he goes to France. He goes to Cordova. He goes to Granada. He ends up settling in Lucena, I believe is how you pronounce it, a city in Spain, where he becomes the head of the academy following the passing of the previous rabbi there. At that time, at this age of 75, his main student comes to him, Rabbi Joseph ibn Migash, who ends up becoming his main student, and he appoints as successor over his own son, Rabbi Yaakov. Rabbi Joseph ibn Migash is famous, besides for his own commentary, of being the teacher of Maimonides. And Maimonides whenever Maimonides refers to his teachers, he's referring to Rabbi Joseph ibn Migash, as well as the Rif, Rabbi Ilfus. Rabbi Yitzchak ends up, at that time, he writes a book called Sefer Halachot, or Halachot, which means the laws. And what he did was he wrote a digest of the Talmud, where you look in the back of almost any edition of the Talmud, you'll see many. It looks like another Talmud, where there is a middle with commentaries around it, and it's not the Talmud, it is the Rif, and it's even the same words. And what he did was he took out all the parts of the Talmud that were not relevant to the law, which means any of the stories of the Talmud, any of the debates of the Talmud, and he just writes the basic law. So this is the debate, this is the law follows this one. So it's still a compendium to the Talmud, I would say, more than a standalone book, but it is really the first of his generation of codes, of no longer commentating on the understanding of the Talmud, but going away from the Talmud and trying to get what are the laws, what are the practical rulings from the Talmud. And he was the first to do that, and it becomes the basis for many codes, especially in the Sephardic lands, meaning in the lands of Spain, Morocco, and other areas where they followed his rulings, and it was later picked up by Rabbi Yosef Karo. Of course, you mentioned already Maimonides, and they all use his book as as kind of, this is where we're going to get our rulings from the understanding of the Rif. He is, and throughout the commentators, he's always referred to as this, either the Rif or the Ilfus. That is the name of what he's known as, even though he called his own book Halachot, which means the laws. He passed away at the age of 90 in Lucena, in Spain, and his legacy lives on to this day. That if you're opening a Talmud and you want to know what is the rulings of the Talmud, you just flip to the back, and you could see what the Rif says, and there are like we said, there are commentaries on the Rif, who you could see kind of who trying to understand what is the practical law from a debate in the Talmud. and he really changed the conversation of, from the understanding of the Talmud to trying to understand um, what are the rulings of the Talmud. He had studied by people who were kind of in that Gaonic era that we discussed last time, and he became essentially the leader of the Jewish people in those lands of Spain and Morocco, and really throughout the Jewish world, following the closure of the Babylonian yeshivas. And people flocked to him from all over to his yeshiva in Spain to study, even at his advanced age. And as we said, that's where he got his main student, Rabbi Yosef ibn Migash. Some say that as well, Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid and the Rabbi Moshe ibn Ezra were also students of his at that time in Spain. So he left a real mark on Jewish history and is studied to this day. And a really fascinating personality of someone who changed the Jewish conversation of Talmudic scholarship.